Good morning, folks. This is Mike with the Maine Primitive Skills School. We're going to do something a little bit different today. I want to start a weekly video series targeting folks who might be interested in the apprenticeship, but also educational enough to engage folks in their own backyard. So today's theme is going to be needle leaf trees, to prepare people for when they get here to use these trees. We use them every day as part of our routine for everything from hygiene to food to teas to cordage, water containers, basketry materials. The needle leaf trees build our shelters. They provide boughs to get us off the ground to prevent conduction. There's all manner of uses in the needle leaf trees. Let's start with one of the trees that we'll have the most interactions with. It's also one of the more vigorous pioneer species in a forested area, and that's balsam fir. One of its gifts to the landscape, of course, is it provides cover for the snowshoe hare, hunting grounds for the bobcat, the gray fox. All the animals that we have on this landscape tend to go to the balsam fir thicket for shelter, camouflage, and this is where the hunting is. This is where all the action is. It fills the understory nicely. It grows fast, but it also dies young. So we use the balsam fir for our shelter building materials because it replaces itself rather quickly. Anytime you see a dense cluster of balsam fir, that means the canopy was opened up by one of the larger trees. Now, we're very selective about cutting the larger trees, and we only do so if they're dying, and then we use them for firewood. It's very rare that we'll cut a healthy large tree unless it's blocking the garden or we want to open up a new area for nut-producing trees. When you start interacting with the landscape on the level of caretaker, we're not just taking what we need. We're looking at what the landscape needs first, and then we're looking for our opportunities to grow with that landscape with regard to shelter building, making fires, procuring water. Not only procuring water, but harvesting water in a manner that benefits the landscape around us and keeps us healthy. So there's a lot to this. It's more than a linear series of instructional videos. It's more organic than that. And I believe that once you reach a certain age, you decide to get tired of hating and grieving and start committing yourself to what you love and how to leave it better than you found it. And once you make that transition, it doesn't get any easier, but there's this certain degree of respect that's earned when I see people on the landscape who willingly share skills to make this place a better place than we found it, and then have to go back to their homes to take a ration of garbage from folks who are in their young 20s with this as their symbol. So if you're in this space, it's a healthy stage of growth. Live it viscerally. Get it out of your system, though, because at one point you're going to want to be more productive for your people than the angry voice that gets discounted or marginalized. It's time we start focusing on, so what do we do about it, right? And what do we do about it is an action statement. We're going to create actions in our lives to better our own sacred fire, our own family life, our own backyard, our own neighborhood, our own community. And in radiating that self-reliance out into a resilient community, we make real change. So I want to show you what we're going to be using these trees for, starting with balsam fir. Here's an example of a dead balsam fir. You don't even need to look up to know there's not going to be any resin in these sap blisters, if there are any sap blisters left, but this little boring larva, right? There's powder post beetle holes, there's hairy woodpecker holes, and they're after the carpenter ants that have tunneled into the core of this tree. So one of the things about balsam fir is you'll see what looks like a healthy tree suddenly blow over in a slight wind, and that's because it's been hollowed out by carpenter ants. So we got a young balsam fir in the foreground, and in the background, continuing upward, we have a balsam fir at the end of its life, side by side. No needles on the branches, sloughing bark, right? It's underneath this bark. You can usually scrape enough dry tinder for a fire in the worst conditions, and if not, you can tunnel into those woodpecker holes that we saw before. I've been spoiled on balsam fir for my bow drill sets. Now here's a cluster of balsam fir that will self-prune eventually. And that's because, you know, they're all in that race for sunlight. These solar panels need to bring energy to the plant in order for it to survive. But when they die standing straight up. And if you look at how straight the growth is, you've got your spindle and your fireboard already on that dead standing stalk once it perishes. This is a young stand. There's no dead branches here, but it's really easy to get a bow drill off the landscape if you're in a balsam fir stand. One of the unique characteristics of balsam fir are these sap blisters. It's like popping a zit, right? Now, it is a delicious, flammable, antimicrobial, antiscorbutic, antiseptic. So it protects wounds, it helps start fires, and it's a delicious tea. I will warn you, if you try to lick this right off your finger, which I'm going to, it's pretty overpowering. But you stick your thumb in a nice warm cup of water and you stir. There's your balsam fir tea. There, see, I didn't die. So you can see the balsam fir was harvested off this landscape, but if you were walking around these woods, you wouldn't find a lack of balsam fir. There's so much of it. And knowing this helps us to decide our overall forest garden plan. When we're taking logs, we're taking them from sites that are overpopulated with balsam fir, and we're not just wiping out all of them, we're thinning that site to allow for more diversity. The broadleaf trees, for instance, to come up. And we do favor some trees. We're at the northernmost range for the white oaks, so that makes them unusual, and we protect those white oaks and we encourage their growth. But at the same time, red maples, they're like balsam fir in that they're very prolific. When you cut one down, they'll start to create a bunch of shoots up out of their stump. We use that to our advantage, as well as to the advantage of the landscape around us. And there's a lot of strategies involved here, and it's something that you can't just learn in a day or even in a year, but by plugging into the landscape and working it to build your shelter, to get your fire, to boil your water in the container you made yourself. That empowers you to want to increase the bounty of your landscape, because you want to be able to live with a more self-reliant community that involves your backyard. Always find dry wood in the balsam fir forest. If you can get inside the center of this wood, it's friable. It's very dry. Right, if you can't get that snapping, and usually there's resin. So there's your fat wood. Poor man's fat wood. So we're in a lodge again, balsam fir. Right over around. Right. We're in a lodge that was created by this last apprenticeship, and we were toying with the idea of making another one more for next year's apprenticeship, but we're going to leave it up to the apprentices on account that we also have a lot of maintenance to do and modifications with the other 3 lodges that we have out here. And you're still going to learn the concepts, but maybe you guys are going to really want to build your own. So either way, you start off with debris huts, to earn your way out of your tarps. You're comfortable in your debris hut with a workroom for 4 days, and then you earn your way into one of these luxury bush camps here. Now, until I find something more efficient, this is the design we're going with. It's 28 degrees outside. There hasn't been a fire in this lodge since 2 days ago, and it's 50 degrees. So we're at a stable 50 degrees in a lodge that can sleep 2 comfortably, 3 in a pinch, and that's with their gear. We're no longer surviving when we're living in these. These are earth living shelters, and from this platform then you could work on your rocket stove, thermal mass, radiant floor heating system, and your pump drill, fire making device, your strap drill, your 4-season foraging plan, putting up rice and acorns to dry. See, once you get your shelter, now you're talking, right? So again, balsam fir.